Losing time, I'm fading fast. I just wanna make it last. Try to let go of the past. I close my eyes, embrace the blast. Sleepless nights and headache stack. Restlessness to hell.
The Xiaomi Redmi K100 Pro officially launched just yesterday, right before the next-gen SoC arrives. So, does this phone really deserve the Pro name? Let's find out. Big thanks to my tech partner over in China for providing this footage. I really appreciate the support in making this video happen. Hey everyone, Stella here from techiestreet. If you're into staying updated with the newest gadgets, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our latest tech content. As always, let's start with the design. The K100 Pro looks very similar to the K90. The camera keeps the same quad-barrel layout, while the deco has a metallic blob design. There's also a highlighted ring around the Bose-tuned speaker. While textured leather is becoming popular, the K100 Pro sticks with an AG frosted glass back. It resists fingerprints well and feels great in the hand. Our green version is called Firefly Chasing Light. And no, there are no actual fireflies involved. The effect comes from a luminous coating inside the rear panel. Leave it in sunlight and it can glow in darker environments. You can even use a blue-purple light pen to draw patterns on it. Is it useful? Not really, but for pure fun, it scores surprisingly high. The frame is still brushed aluminum alloy, but the transition into the back is now rounder and more curved. We saw a similar design on the Xiaomi 15, where it was praised for comfort. The K100 Pro gets the same benefit. That redesign also helps make the heavier Pro hardware feel easier to handle. Our manual measurements aren't perfect, but the K100 Pro is slightly thicker and heavier than the similarly sized K90. Thankfully, the width stays fairly compact. So if you're coming from a Xiaomi compact phone with a large display, the adjustment should be easy. Now let's flip it over and check out the display. At first glance, the K100 Pro looks almost identical to the K90. Both have a 6.59-inch flat panel, nearly equal bezels, 1.5K resolution, and LTPS technology. Xiaomi calls the pixel layout a Super Pixel RGBS design. It removes sub-pixel sharing and delivers an equivalent 419 ppi. But here's where things get interesting. The display technology has changed significantly. The K100 Pro may be one of the first Xiaomi phones to make the M11 panel standard across its current lineup. It peaks at 461 nanometers for blue light and supports hardware-level low blue light protection. Its spectral distribution is also noticeably different from the previous generation. The reason? Those green pixels use PTSS technology, developed with Tsinghua University. PTSS has a narrower half-width, allowing a wider green color gamut. In 3D color gamut coverage, it reaches 90% of BT 2020. That makes it the third wide color gamut solution we've seen, along with Samsung's COE and Huawei BOE's TADFI. But there's one catch. The pre-installed HyperOS 3.0 still doesn't offer complete BT 2020 color management, so to unlock the display's full potential, we may need to wait for a major OTA update. PTSS also improves pixel light efficiency dramatically. That's why Redmi allows almost 900 nits in manual mode, while minimum brightness drops to just 1 nit. Manual brightness ceiling this high is new for Mi phones, and it shows how confident Redmi is in the M11 panel. Of course, most users will rely on auto brightness. Around 600 nits, its curve is almost identical to the K90 series, but as ambient light increases, the K100 Pro can push brightness much further. It also uses Xiaomi and Apple's second-order automatic brightness system. Basically, the usable range of the brightness slider changes based on your surroundings. Modern phones already have huge brightness ranges, but the physical slider itself has limited room to work with. This system keeps that adjustment range more practical. In dark environments, it limits maximum brightness to reduce accidental strobe-like effects. Outdoors, it raises minimum brightness so you don't accidentally drop the display to 1 nit. Honestly, this is a feature more phones should have. And yes, peak brightness gets a major upgrade too. With the entire screen active, SDR HBM brightness reaches 1,250 nits. Shrink the display window and it climbs even higher. At 10% APL, the theoretical peak can reach 4,400 nits. But that's under ideal conditions. For real-world use, the brightness curve under low ambient light matters much more. Here, the K100 Pro activates its high brightness behavior earlier than the K90 series, reaching maximum activation around 15,000 lux. Combine that with better EOTF performance and a wider color gamut in strong lighting, the K100 Pro may be Xiaomi's brightest and most readable phone yet in harsh outdoor conditions. Now let's talk about color reproduction. The K100 Pro continues Xiaomi's CMF matching strategy for white point calibration. White point stability is excellent at medium and high brightness. At low brightness, there's only a slight shift towards red. Overall, the display performs well, but it's not perfect. The EOTF curve follows Gamma 2.2 closely, while gray balance starts fluctuating above G50 and becomes much worse around G25, so grayscale tracking is only average. Xiaomi also keeps its color gamut enhancement in darker gray areas. The goal is simple: improve visibility and make the screen more comfortable. It's become a familiar Xiaomi feature. For color accuracy, the 550 nit test looks strong. Most pixels stay below a color difference of 1.5, but at 250 and 100 nits, the error increases, mainly because EOTF performance gets worse in the gray levels. It's hard to know if this is related to the K100 Pro's wider brightness range. The expanded range may be creating some fitting issues in the middle of the curve. Next, we used 2D analysis to check color accuracy and screen uniformity. The white point is good, while brightness and chromaticity are generally acceptable. In most dark mode apps, brightness stays stable around G38, although small chromaticity differences start appearing. Around G17, some apps show a slight pattern, with the top looking brighter and the bottom darker. Chromaticity also becomes less uniform. At G14, clusters of bumps become visible. Uniformity is good at higher brightness, but the problems become easier to see as brightness falls. So overall, uniformity is average. Brightness uniformity is good, but chromaticity still needs work. Now comes one of the more important tests: 3D color accuracy and viewing angles. The K100 Pro improves here, especially in chromaticity and viewing angles. Its color shift is somewhat like the iPhone, first moving toward blue, then gradually shifting back. Even at a 70% color shift, GNCD stays below 2.5. That's impressive. But there's a trade-off. Brightness retention at wider angles is slightly worse, with a bigger drop at medium and large viewing angles. For dimming, there are no separate modes. Instead, Xiaomi continues using its large-scale DC dimming solution. Because this is an LTPS panel with a maximum 185 Hz refresh rate, most apps run at 120 Hz. Supported games can reach 144 Hz, 165 Hz, or even 185 Hz. At medium to high brightness, the phone can drop to 60 Hz when the screen is stationary to save power. Using global 3D SVM measurements, results are similar to the K90. Performance is excellent at high brightness, but weaker at low brightness, especially in dark environments and low gray levels. That's still a limitation of large-scale DC dimming. For response time, we used our new Gay-Wan 4.0 blur test. At 120 Hz, the K100 Pro produces about 6.5 times the ideal blur per millisecond. Most of it comes from extremely low gray levels, which is common with high refresh rate displays. We also tested two typical scrolling speeds. The good news? There was virtually no color bleeding. Now HDR, and this is where Redmi has a clear advantage. Thanks to the newer display materials, the K100 Pro reaches higher HDR brightness than its predecessor. Global brightness reaches 2200 nits, giving HDR content a strong brightness range.
It also supports HDR10 and Dolby Vision, so for high-resolution movies and HDR content, you're well covered. Now let's talk performance. The K100 Pro skips the usual Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 and 8 Gen 5. Instead, Redmi uses Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Elite V series, a very long name for a slightly different chip. The CPU setup and clock speeds match the 8 Elite Gen 5, but its Android 840 GPU has fewer computing units and less cache. So how does that actually affect gaming? First, Honor of Kings. At 144 FPS and 500 nits, the 1% low reached 140.7 FPS. Core frequencies stayed around 0.9 to 1.1 GHz. Total system power averaged 4.17 watts, with the screen slightly warmer than the body. Next was Genshin Impact at standard 884p resolution. At 500 nits, the 1% low was 46.6 FPS. CPU scheduling was fairly conservative, keeping system power at just 3.86 watts, actually lower than Honor of Kings. Temperatures were lower too. Then came the heavy Star Track test. The phone automatically used 994p resolution with 775p overclocking enabled. For most of the 30-minute test, it stayed near 60 FPS at 300 nits. The 1% low was 39.7 FPS. CPU cores stayed around 1.1 GHz and could boost when needed. Despite the load, average system power was only 6.59 watts. Front and rear temperatures passed 40 degrees C, but the cooling system still handled things effectively. Then we tested Arknight's The Last Emperor. The 1% low reached 48.3 FPS. This game puts heavy pressure on the CPU, which actually suits the CPU-focused Snapdragon 8 Elite V series. Average system power was 6.36 watts. Temperatures were slightly higher than in Star Trek, but still healthy, with the cooling system not pushed to its limit. Finally, Wi-Fi performance. The K100 Pro supports dual-band 5G MoLo, combining 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz bands. But the system shows a maximum negotiated speed of just 2882, and MoLo is only indicated by a small plus sign beside the Wi-Fi 7 icon. In testing, both 5.2 GHz and 5.8 GHz performed around the level expected from Qualcomm's flagship platforms. So should you enable MoLo? Probably not. It can improve peak transfer speeds, but stability is still worse than standard Wi-Fi, and for gaming, stability matters more.
Next, let's talk touch performance, especially important if you're buying this for gaming. In normal use, the K100 Pro reaches around 135 Hz touch sampling. In 60 FPS games like Genshin Impact and Ultraman, it can hit 240 Hz, while competitive games can reach 480 Hz. Our end-to-end touch-to-audio latency was about 70 milliseconds, with touch-to-display latency around 52 milliseconds. Touch enhancement didn't change much, so performance is pretty typical for Xiaomi. Now, battery, and this is one of the K100 Pro's biggest strengths. The phone uses a silicon-carbon battery with 26% silicon content and a massive 8,580 mAh capacity. That's even larger than some previous generation big-screen phones. In our light load test, it lasted slightly less than the K90 Ultra, but roughly matched the K90 Max and clearly beat the similarly sized K90. For gaming, battery life can exceed 7 hours. Even heavy gaming can last more than 4 hours. For a 5.69-inch phone, that's seriously impressive. Charging remains 100-watt wired, using the same 100-watt A to C adapter introduced with the Xiaomi 17 series. At 25 degrees Celsius, charging from 5% to 100% peaked around 82 watts in fast charge mode, with the first interruption after about 64 minutes, with a full charge taking roughly 82 minutes. Considering that huge battery, the longer charging time isn't surprising.
You also get 50-watt wireless charging, which fits the Pro name nicely. Just drop it on a compatible charger whenever you need a quick top-up. But the cameras are where things get really interesting. The triple camera system gets a major main camera upgrade. Redmi replaces the Light Hunter 800 with a 200-megapixel Samsung HP5 sensor and a larger f1.68 aperture. Compared with last year's standard K90, it retains noticeably more fine detail. And Redmi hasn't simply cranked up sharpening to make the 200-megapixel sensor look impressive. Daytime saturation is slightly lower too, giving photos a more natural look. At night, the difference is even bigger. Detail retention improves significantly, colors look better, and dark areas are handled more cleanly. Even the night sky looks more controlled. So yes, the rear camera system genuinely feels pro-level. The telephoto is now a 2.5x ZN5 sensor with OIS. Its performance is decent, but it doesn't compete with the strongest dedicated telephoto cameras today. Its macro performance, however, is excellent. For close-ups of flowers and plants, it performs far better than the triple periscope reflex setup. The ultra-wide camera is less exciting. It's still an 8-megapixel 15mm camera, so it's really only there when you need that wider perspective. Video is another major upgrade. The K100 Pro supports 4K 60fps HDR, likely Redmi's highest video specification yet. You can switch between the main and telephoto cameras while recording, giving you better detail, stabilization, and dynamic range. But saturation and exposure tuning still feel a little immature. You may need manual adjustments or simply wait for a future update. Looking at the remaining hardware, there's a hidden infrared sensor inside the camera module. You also get a single-point ultrasonic fingerprint sensor. It's fast and remains reliable even with a wet finger or wet screen. Protection includes IP66, IP68, and IP69. At this point, that's becoming standard on newer Redmi phones. The Bose-tuned 1115F speaker system also returns. For detailed audio results, you can check our K90 Standard Edition testing. The vibration motor remains the 0809 model. It's a reasonable compromise, especially with that enormous battery inside such a compact body. So where does all of this leave us? Considering the cost pressure this year, Redmi launching the K100 Pro in August actually makes a lot of sense. You get 50-watt wireless charging, a 200-megapixel f1.68 main camera, and 4K 60fps HDR. These are exactly the kinds of features we wouldn't expect on standard models. So yes, the Pro badge feels justified. Interestingly, the biggest battery and standby improvements over the K90 don't really come from the SoC. A huge part of the story is the display. The screens may look similar on paper, but the new panel is fundamentally different. Its more advanced PTSS technology offers the potential for BT 2020 support while improving light efficiency. That means brighter areas can actually get brighter, giving you a better experience in strong outdoor lighting. Combine that efficiency with the higher density battery, and you get a meaningful improvement in overall battery life. There isn't a huge performance jump this generation, but as a complete package, this may be one of the smartest ways Redmi could have brought the Pro series back. And that's everything for this video. If you enjoyed it, hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more tech content. As always, welcome to the tech team. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.